You're recording?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Jessica.
And I'm Amber, and welcome back to the I Used to Hate the Color Yellow podcast. How was everybody today? That was a quick intro. Sorry about that. That was a stop, not a slow down.
The whole day has been chaotic.
It is. It's what a day. What a day. It's funny. If you guys only knew what goes on behind the scenes and in our lives and what it takes for us to get here in the studio. Woo! We were just talking about how we need to do excerpts of all the chaos of actually hitting record some days. Yeah.
On that note,
yeah.
Today we're going to talk about my addiction story.
Yeah. So today Jessica and I have experienced a lot in life, and there's different things that we've shared together, like different of the same topics, I guess. Mm-hmm. And this is one that is definitely geared more towards Jessica. So she's going to be sharing a lot of her truth with you guys, open and honest. She'll kind of take the lead, and I'm just going to kind of be like the support person, kind of be the voice of you guys, like asking questions as the story progresses. And I'm sure we won't be able to hit it on everything because it's...
Yeah, I'll try to make it just hit on stuff so I'm not boring you.
Yeah. But hopefully it touches base with you at some point, whether it's somebody that's experienced just an iota of what you have or way more than what you have, or know somebody. I feel like in today's world, you just know somebody. Either you've gone through something or you know somebody that has. So with that...
All right, let's get started. So, addiction runs in my family. My mom went through addiction that she openly and honestly expresses. And both of my brothers on my mom's side, I do have a brother that's in prison, partially due to addiction. So, I heard this one pastor say one time, Stephen Furtick, he said that when he was 16, he was invited to a party. I think I'm getting this. Please don't yell at me if I'm misquoting. I think I remember. But he had said that his dad sat him down and was like, his dad was an alcoholic, and was like, I just want to let you know, you can go to this party, but I want you to know, addiction runs in our family. So the minute you touch alcohol, it's, over for you, basically. And I wish... schools, when they did the dare, sign this, you'll never do drugs,
right,
they showed these videos that were stupid, this is what drugs do to your brain, and then they start frying an egg.
Yeah, they didn't really do that for you guys. I know that was a thing. Oh geez, okay.
Yeah, and we saw all those videos, or we saw the guy in the trench coat and was like, you want to buy drugs?
Oh yeah,
and then it was say no.
Right.
I wish my mom, I'm not bashing her about this because she really didn't know.
Right.
She told me all of the horrible things that happened because of it, but I never was sat down and hey, the moment you touch something, it's in your system, it's in your family.
Right. Do you think that would have helped?
I don't know.
I'm just thinking honestly because I know what you're saying, the bad guys, the bad guys are the ones, the drug dealers, it's when we tell our little kids, be careful of the kidnappers, or these scary guys are dressed in all black, they have this van. No, a lot of times it's somebody they know, or they, a person looks very kind, and they use, the manipulation to do that. So, being aware, and so I tell that with my kids, somebody you wouldn't be, you wouldn't be afraid of, that is going to approach you, so just be hesitant. So, if you would have known that, I guess you don't know, you can't go back.
Yeah, that's what I wish I would have known, everything that comes with addiction.
Yes.
I wish I would have known that I'd become a compulsive liar. Or impulsive, I don't know.
No, compulsive. Impulsive is like that immediate reaction.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
But I think this is good, actually, because even if some of our listeners, I have the ability and opportunity to talk to teenagers every single day at school. And so I'm pretty honest with kids, especially when I was at Flannery, kids would come up to me later on, and they just talk about their life. And I'm like, okay, so I just tell it how it is.
Yeah.
And I think this could be a starting point for a lot of our adult listeners who have kids maybe that want to have a conversation with them and like, listen to this and what do you like, look at you, because you're a prime example of like, would have never done it, because I know earlier before we were talking like, I gotta talk about how I addicted even in high school, and people we would have had no idea.
Yeah.
And that's where it started. So I think this could be a launching pad for some of those conversations too. So that could be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I agree. No, you're good.
So yeah, what would you have stopped? Maybe not, but having all the knowledge, and so this could be knowledge to give to people that.
Yeah. Okay. The issue with it was that one, it's much more easily accessible than a guy in a trench coat walking up to you. Yeah. It is, especially when I was living in Houston. It was as easy as going into the store and like, I need paper towels. Like I could literally just text someone and be like, hey, I need ecstasy, and be like, all right, come pick it up. Right. But I wish I would have known that I would become a liar, that like I'd be hiding all this stuff from my family, that I would literally live a double life trying to keep my life going. Like, and I didn't grasp that I'd hurt a lot of people, especially when I lied about them. They had no idea. Right. So that's the baseline. My family deals with addiction, or had dealt with. Right. So it was like.
Well, and I feel like once you realize that you are an addict, do you always have to be aware of it? I mean, I know it's like
aware.
Yes.
When I realized that I was like addicted to ecstasy, I think maybe I haven't talked about it before, but ecstasy is cut with or mixed in with other drugs. It's the chemical whatever, or whatever they grind up, but it's also either cut with meth, heroin, or cocaine, and I've done all three. So I've never done heroin or meth like straight up, but I did do it. Yeah. So
I feel like a lot of times if somebody I feel like, I don't know, I'm coming from the experience of just watching television shows and stuff with addictions. Like, it's like once you've gone through it, you just know that you are always an addict. It's like once you're an addict, you're always an addict. And I don't want to put that title on somebody always, but you just have to always be aware, like, you can easily relapse.
You have to be conscious of it. Like, I don't want to say, like, once an addict, always an addict, because people told me that.
Yeah, and that like, feels like it's a lose-lose.
Yeah, so initially that affected me negatively, and I was like, I'm always gonna be an addict, so I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care what I do. But now, like you said, it's more of a conscience. Like, you deal with this.
Yes.
Like, and along with that, I have some stuff to share.
Okay.
But yeah. So I'll just touch on this, and eventually later on we'll go into more detail. But when I was 8, I started seeing this pediatrician. And my tonsils would swell up so much so that I couldn't breathe, and I tried like breathing out my nose. I ended up from 8 to 10. I had strep throat multiple times a year. It was just so bad for me. So this doctor, I would say this was a situation of grooming, because at 8 years old I would go in. These are roughly ages I'm trying to remember, but I've kind of suppressed a lot of stuff. So he was like, I came in once, and because I had a wart on my foot, and he grabbed my foot and he looked at it and was like, you know how you get warts, right? And little kid, I was like, no. And he's like, you've been kissing boys, haven't you? So like, that's what started it. That gave me an off feeling even when I was young, because I was like panicking. I was like, my dad was in the room, and I was like, I don't kiss boys. Right. So then it gradually became multiple visits throughout these years, and he would like swab my throat. But the issue was, maybe this was, I could be overthinking it. I don't think so now looking back. But when he would swab my throat, like, it's just a quick swab. And he did it for a long time. And like, I would start like flailing, and he'd like, woo! He'd like push on my chest to keep me down. So yeah, so it turned into that, and like multiple times they're like, can you just take out her tonsils? And he was like, no, we're gonna keep giving her antibiotics. So there was always a reason for me to come back. My mom finally, like, when I was 10, like I ended up getting, like, I just needed a physical. Like I was 10, and I had to get, like, he wanted me stripped down completely in this gown. And like I started crying because I was like, it freaked me out to get like partially naked in front of, you know, just anyone.
Man, yeah,
like,
that's 5th grade. Yeah, it's like my daughter right now. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, so he, my parent left the room, and because he advised it, he was like, you can leave. And again, I don't blame anyone, because when I shared this, I made a video, the parent reached out to me and was like, I am so sorry, I wish I would have known.
Right.
So I don't hold it against them. Like, the doctor said, you know, you trust a doctor. Well, during that time, he ended up, like, I won't go into detail, but just like touching me. And so after that happened, I was like bawling. And the doctor had told my dad, like, she's overweight, she needs to lose weight. And, like, of course you're going to believe that, and I was too scared to say anything. So this has happened on multiple occasions where and if you've gone through it, you know, some people just freeze, and I froze, and I was a terrible child. Just anger issues. My parents had no idea. My parents divorced when I was like 3 or 4, and they both had new people in their lives. So, you know, their assumption is like, there's chaos right now. That's what's going on. And I just kept it to myself, but it was very obvious through my behaviors in school. Like by 7th grade, I almost like I almost failed. I'm still convinced we had to take the Constitution. Mrs. N, I'm convinced that you let me pass. I'm very, probably not, but yeah. I don't know. That was bad. So, and then in 8th grade, I wasn't allowed to have guys over when my parents were home. But the issue was, like, all my guy friends, we were literally best friends. Like, small town. Shout out Seth, you still my bestie. Like, we still keep in contact, and but like, that's the thing. Here we are years later. Obviously, we were just friends.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I would lock my door. Sorry, guys. Seth would come. This was like at night. Sometimes I'd either go out my window and go to Casey's and sit with him to just talk. Right. Or he would come and sit at our patio outside. I'd just go out the window and go sit with him. Right. And we just talk about life. Like, we're just best friends. Right. So, yeah. So I was just bad. I also lied to my mom about this concert and convinced her to let me go. And it was like emo screamo, like... Oh. Come to find out, one of the guys that was blood on the dance floor, he ended up being like a child, like, predator. Oh. Yeah, so not a good situation. Right. And I lied to my mom, and we came home. It was a school night at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and she was furious, like so mad. So anyways, all that to say, that's how I responded. Right.
And in hindsight, now your parents can see, or whoever, all the adults can see like all the warning signs, but when you're in it, it's very easily like to like find another reasoning why you were acting out. So kind of keep it in mind and having open conversations with your children too, of like what's going on, and having a supportive, like, it's okay. Like, if something's going on, let me know. Yeah. Okay.
And so in high school, oh my gosh, I picked up boxing because I needed an outlet, because I was still so angry. Like, I was so angry, I'd be punching stuff, like the asphalt, concrete, like, just until, like, my knuckles started bleeding. And my mom and I got into screaming fights. I've apologized to her now, but we would just yell and yell because she didn't understand, and I had all this suppressed stuff, and so yeah, lots of fights. We're much better now, much better.
Well, I think that's part of teenagers and parents too. I was listening to, I don't know, a radio station one day, and they were talking about this, like, teenagers, raise your teenagers not like, what was it? Like, don't treat them like big kids, treat them like baby adults or infant adults. I'm like, that's so smart, because, you know, like, we're teaching them how to become adults. So maybe, you know, I'm just saying, like, fighting with parents is very common. So,
and like, they unfortunately or fortunately trusted me. Like, I'm not saying, like, once I got into high school, I straightened out a lot, and like, I like started getting good grades, got on honor roll, like did all these extracurricular, like National Honor Society, like
yeah, didn't pass the Constitution test, but yeah, National Honor Society, which is true, you know, like, yeah, because you were in control, you were able to, it was just you acting out. Yeah, and it could have been boredom too at that age.
Yeah,
junior high is rough.
Oof. True. And like, we weren't at the point of like cell phones, like touchscreen. We all kind of had just the generic,
right?
Well, older versions. So we'd always go to the park and hang out, do stuff like that.
Right.
Anyways, so I don't remember where exactly I left off, but
school,
yeah, my my addiction. So when I was younger, now looking back, food was a huge part, huge part. So that was like technically my first. But then it was working out. Like, these are all like not extreme yet, but then working out, like, I needed to get smaller, and it needed to keep going, because I still to this day, it's a mind battle. Like, still to this day, I deal with like body dysmorphia because I still see me at my biggest. So that's when I became bulimic when I was 17, because the results weren't happening fast enough, and someone had me weigh myself every day. And so if that scale didn't go down, the next day I would cut half, and then I'd still be like, you know, throwing up, like making myself. It got so bad that I would sleep in like the sweatsuits, like the plastic.
Geez, yeah.
I would sleep in that. One day I did a 24-hour fast with no water, no food. And then I did my own like homemade sweat lodge in my bathroom. And I turned the bath like hot.
Oh my gosh.
And then like put literally towel under the door so all the steam could sit in. And I sat in the bathtub for like a couple minutes, and then I got out and just sat in there. I'm not even kidding you. In that 24-hour fast and doing all of that, I lost 10 pounds.
I'm sure it's all water, but yeah.
Yeah. So in order to, because once you eat, like, your body absorbs it. It goes right back to it. So in order to counteract that, I would do like small amounts of food, or like I'd eat an apple or things like that. So that kind of plays into like all the mental health stuff that got me to the point. When I was 17, so I was a cheerleader and I was a base, so I had to lift up the girls. I already had missed a week of school because I got my wisdom teeth out, ended up missing, pause. The whole thing with the doctor, my mom took charge, and she called by the time I was 11, and she was like, we're getting these out. So that's what ended like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to this. Got my wisdom teeth out. I was given painkillers. Well, I already missed a week of school, and my parents were like, you gotta go. So I got there, and I was in so much pain, and I was only supposed to take one, but I was like, I have cheer practice and there's no way. So I took like 3, and like definitely was feeling good, but it's once that hit, like I did it again, because I'm like, I'm feeling good, and then I did it again, and then until my pills ran out, and then I couldn't. So then I was like, now looking back, the reason why I was so on edge is because my body like was used to just getting that coming in. So that was the first. Now, going into college, my ex-boyfriend, he basically initiated like smoking pot, and he did it every single day. So I did it every single day with him. And then him and his best friend like drinking. So every weekend I was drinking. And that was like a continuous thing for almost a year, just this cycle. And then so much more. We'll touch base on that, but it was a whole mental thing and the stuff he did. So when I had left before I went to Texas, I had like a 6-week period where, like, again, I was going through all of these, like, I was everywhere. I was like, I don't have anything. Sorry, I'm just trying to touch base.
No, yeah.
And then, so I go to Houston, and I'm good for like the first 6 months I'm there because I'm living with my sister and brother-in-law.
So before Houston, you were in college just drinking and smoking pot. That's pretty much what it consisted of.
Oh, and also I got more painkillers at one time because I ended up, long story, passing out at work. Got more painkillers. I forgot about that. Oh my God, excuse me. But yeah, I forgot about that. I ended up getting more painkillers, and at the restaurant I was working at, I looked up online if you die if you snorted them, because I know it would get in your system faster, and you didn't. So we had a swipe card. I literally took that swipe card, I went into the bathroom, opened the baby changing station, and yeah, gross, right?
Yeah.
And chopped it up with my card and like snorted it, like I really did. And so I did that until they were gone. So that was another thing. But in Houston, 6 months, I was good. I was living with my sister Tiffany and her husband, and at 6 months, I hit my point. I wanted to be alone, move out by myself, and then eventually I just started smoking pot again, and then started drinking. But then ecstasy was presented to me as something that will make you the happiest you've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
That was my draw. It wasn't anything else but like the draw, and I was like, well, I've already done this stuff, so I can just do this.
Right.
Um,
And I feel like ecstasy is like, and I don't know, I go back to when I was in college, people would do that. And there was actually a time where I remember there was a group of us girls were like, yeah, there was, I don't know, something going on that weekend, like, and so one of the girls was calling around trying to, because I had never done anything like that. And I'm like, she's like, oh, we'll try and get some. So she called friends to try to score. We were at Eastern, so it wasn't as easy as Houston, and she wasn't able to get any. Yeah. So I wonder, like, as you're talking, like, I wonder if that would have led me into like an avenue, a pathway of different things. Yeah. So, because it was one of those things like, oh, it'll just make you feel good and happy, and like, la, 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 like,
yeah,
like a simple thing, but
yeah, but yeah, I still have the old videos that I had from those days because I definitely don't like, but looking back and seeing how far I've come, when you do ecstasy, if anyone knows, if it's cut with cocaine, you're chattering a lot. One time I did so much that I had lockjaw the next day and I had to work. I didn't cough, so I was like talking like this, and actually a dentist had come in and she was like, you have lockjaw, and I was like, yep. And she was like, don't try pulling it apart, and I was like, yeah, I try not to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so when it was cut with heroin, I've never done it straight up, but my brother told me that when you do it, it's like your body is like levitating up, or you feel this feeling like going up. And I remember the first time I did that was a whole other thing. The pills were like thicker.
Did you know when you were doing these ecstasy pills, like they're with different things?
No. So my friend told me after the fact, because I was like, what? Because then we started doing Molly, and Molly is crystal form. It's the pure form. It's just like the chemicals of ecstasy, not the cut stuff.
Okay.
So it's like crystallized. When we started doing that, that's when I had questions, because I was like, well, what's the difference? And he was like, oh, well, this is cut with this. And I was like,
So you had no idea even that you were taking that stuff. So I'm thinking meth, heroin, cocaine, like I don't know if you people that are watching the YouTube version of it, like my face, I'm like, what?
Yeah. No, I know this is gonna make a lot of people crap their pants that know me.
Yeah, here you go. Honest, just okay.
Yeah, but I honestly, like, we were just talking about it before the podcast. Like, this is the time for us to be completely honest.
Yes.
And not hide from these things.
Nope.
Because fortunately or unfortunately, like, this is me. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I've gone through. So, I remember I called my brother, or no, I didn't. He called me. My brother Jeremy's in prison, so he calls me, and I was like, "Hey, how do you know when you're addicted?" And obviously, if you're asking that question,
Right.
and he was trying to comfort me and be like, "I don't think you are," and looking back, like, no, if you have to ask that question, you definitely are. So I was doing this every single weekend. We'd go on like. Sometimes we'd start on Thursdays because they had Thursday night, and this place was called Stereo Live. It was a big club.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact, just to add a little humor, the first rave I ever went to, or like club, where at the first time it's called Rolling when you take it, and I'll tell you why it's called Rolling. It was Pauly D.
Oh, really?
I'm not even kidding. It was
from Jersey Shore.
Yes.
He was the DJ.
It was.
That's crazy.
I only remember bits and pieces. I do actually have a video, and yeah, he was funny. He's stuck to that Jersey Shore person.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's called rolling because your eyes will roll up.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. Like, oh.
No, I have videos where I thought I was taking of the person, but it was me, and you just see me like my eyes.
What did you take that did that?
Ecstasy.
Oh.
And Molly.
That's scary as all get out.
Oh yeah, I could show you videos.
Oh.
Yeah, so your eyes start rolling back, and teeth chatter. Yeah, so that started, and then I just needed more because it wasn't. There's this video I shared on Facebook. Maybe I can link it somehow.
Yeah.
It's this depiction of addiction, and there's like a cute little, not cute, it's a sad little song playing in the background, but it's of this like bird with a long, like, it looks like an anteater, except not like,
yeah,
you know what I mean, clamp.
Yep.
Beak. So he's like walking on this path, and there's these little yellow bubbles. He walks on the path, and he like looks at it, and then like turns around, and then at the next one he pauses and looks at it, and then like pokes at it, and then does it, and then his eyes get like big, and then he starts like floating in the air, and then he comes down. So then he's running towards the next one. He does it again. So this is a continuation, but by like the third or fourth one, when he goes up, it's just like a halfway up and then falls straight on his face.
Right.
And then as he kept going, he needed more and more.
Right.
So when he hit that final one, he like, I don't remember if he collapses, but like it blacks out.
Right.
That is how it got for me. So at one of the raves, there was this guy, named Ishan. And he had his little vial of Coke with him. And he was just like, he took it out on his key and was like, you want to do it? And I just was so out of it already. I was like, yeah. So I did it. And
snorted off of somebody's key?
I was so out of it. That guy almost crashed my car too. Because I could not drive. Yeah, so that was that. I did not make good decisions. When I found out that wasn't enough, I started, when I couldn't get high, I bought handles of vodka, and I kept it in my room. And I would just chug it, and then so I'd have something. So it got to that point.
Were you doing it only on the weekends, or it started then it continued
through the week? The thing is, we would go on 4-day benders, and anyone who's taken any drugs, there's a come down, and after you go 4 days solid, just waking up, you're not really eating much, wake up, I'd go to work. I worked long hours at this restaurant in Houston. Go to work, continue the next day, get off of work, go. and you're still running off of that from the previous night. So you would do that, and then by Sunday you would have the come down, and in the come down you literally feel like you're dying. The withdrawal, your body can get cold, you start shaking, you get all these crazy thoughts, you convince yourself, I know at least I did, and my friends, like, that you were dying.
Yeah.
Like, I would have multiple calls to my friends and be like, I think I'm dying. They'd be like, no, it's just the come down. On my 21st birthday, I did so many drugs. Like, it was a copious amount of ecstasy. And then there's this thing called ketamine.
Okay.
It's a lesser version of coke. And I remember on that birthday weekend, someone was like, you want this? And I was like, yeah. So I kept going and going, and I was drinking. And after that whole bender, I don't know how I didn't die. Like, it was so much. But after all that bender, for 2 solid weeks, I was angry. I thought I was gonna die. I ended up, by the end of it, going into the hospital, and the doctor I was like, I just feel like I'm dying, I need help. He had got a urine sample, and he was like, okay, we're not able to give you the help you need here.
Right.
And he was like, you have a lot of stuff in your system. And I was like, just, okay, you can't help me, okay. And then I left. But yeah, that kind of started my downfall, because I couldn't get enough. So that's when I hit rock bottom. Long story short, I ended up moving back home and cold turkey quit. I was terrible, and then I gained so much weight, because when you don't have that, you eat a lot, because that suppresses everything. So even, I will be open and honest, when I say that I am sober and the addiction I dealt with, I'm going to exclusively say that it's just off the pills and the hard drugs. Unfortunately, after all this happened, I went through this big heartbreak, and I a couple times just got trashed. So I just want to make that very clear. Even when I posted on Facebook, I was like, addiction, I'm free of addiction with pills and pill variations. Right. I don't want to lead a life where you guys think like
you're clean completely.
Yeah.
From all substances.
So, it's a thing that I'm working on. I'm gonna own up to that. I did do it. There was times that I did drink and it went too far. That's why, I have to get myself away from it, and I know it. That's the conscious thing of okay, you're gonna go out. This is what's gonna happen. So yeah, I just want to make that very clear. I also did smoke, and I reasoned with myself and was like, well, it's legal now, so it's like medicine. And yeah, I just want to be honest with that. And still to this day, I deal with nicotine addiction. For years, ever since I'm going to be coming up 3 years sober in January. Again, like I said, which I'm very proud of. Even though I've done other things, I've stuck to that, and there's so many times I could have gotten it. So recently, in the past couple of months, I ended up buying another vape, and then again, my mom told me as an adult, she said, I just want you to know, the second time you go back, or every time you go back, it's going to be 10 times harder to quit. Nicotine is the hardest thing to quit. In my opinion, it was harder to quit than the other things. Because I cold turkey quit, and I just dealt with it. All the shakes, all the pains, all getting sick. Excuse me. All the pain, I just dealt with it. But nicotine is such a hard thing to kick. It's just especially for me, I did it once, and it was a monthly thing, and I finally, this week, was like, I have to stop. So now I have patches, nicotine patches, and I'm not really ashamed of that, because I'm taking the initiative, and I'm proud of myself for that, because a lot of times I wouldn't take initiative. And I'd love to say that this is going to be, the end, but I've said that multiple times, and like I'm really trying my best, but it's just hard. And then I go back and forth in my head reasoning with myself, like, is it really, like, devil angel, is it really that bad? Because at least you're not snorting pills or like chopping it up. And so yeah, that's pretty much the synopsis.
So I've been very quiet because I'm just like soaking it all in, because it's such a foreign concept to me with these things, and like doing that. So when it got bad, I know you mentioned like you were lying to family and obviously lying to friends and doing all different things and working and all this stuff. So did you just decide, okay, this life is just too much, I can't do this? Like when the doctors couldn't like help you, and you said you came home and did cold turkey, like what was, because I know there was more, like what was kind of like the thing of like, I cannot, like I'm going to die, like.
Yeah. When I was 20, I was 21 years old, and I know what hitting rock bottom is, and I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up selling a lot of my belongings to get drugs. Like I had a TV, I had a laptop, like anything. I had an old phone, like just anything so I could get it. So I ended up, the last time I took pills was like, I don't know the exact, I think January 12th. I'd have to look though. I have it saved in my phone just so I can keep track. But so I started selling my things, and then I got a management job that salary was going to be $50,000, and for a 21-year-old, like that was gonna, like I'd be set. I would come into work a mess. My shirt would be untucked. I'd have acrylic nails that were, some of them were ripped off. I got so many talkings to, and then I got written up at the job, and then they basically came down to it, and they were like this is what it is, like, and they tried like talking to me, and then they were like seeing my response, and they're like, all right, you're fired. I've never been fired. Like I'm gonna just say this, brag on myself a little, but I have good work ethic, and every job I've had, I've been told that I was a hard worker, and that, so it was because of addiction, like it ruined a lot. Like that's something still to this day, like I think about, because I had such a clean like record with stuff.
Right.
Also, just a quick mention, I would go to these big house parties, and one time we had a friend that was a model. He had his big birthday party at his, like, well, it's not a mansion, but it's a massive house. I ended up stealing drugs from his home, and on my way, I was
like prescription medication?
No, it was like weed. I think I just stole weed actually that night, but only. But then, like I was trashed. My friend got us. Somehow, I hate this about me too, is I didn't care. I drive when I was high, drive when I was drunk. So I ended up getting to the place that we were at where my car was. I got into it. I was trying to drive. I was trying to roll up. It's called the backwood. Trying to roll up one so I could smoke it, because I was so jittery off all the stuff I did. And a cop, like I was sitting in my car apparently for a long time. He ended up coming over to me, and that's when I actually, he's like, I need to search your car. It smells like marijuana. He cuffed me, threw me in his car, and said the Miranda rights. I was like, dang, like this is it. It was close to Thanksgiving. He told me, he's like, I have a daughter your age, and I can tell, like, basically you're hurting. And he was like, I'm going to let you go, but you need to have somebody pick you up. And I was like, so, also while I was in the back of that cop car, I told God that if I didn't get arrested, that I would stop, which I hate that. Like, I asked for forgiveness so many times, because I was like, I just, like, lied. And I got out of it. So anyways, I ended up getting a ride home, told my friends. a previous time before that, real quick, I'm like jumping around.
No, you're fine.
I got caught up with a group of friends that this side of friends, like, where someone always had a gun. Like, I've seen a brick of cocaine being, like, razored off. Like, I've seen some things. Like, we'll go into more things another time, but the stories I have are, like, what people do for drugs. I didn't, like, I went to the extent of selling my things, but there's girls who are like, it's just, I've seen some things in public places, and so anyways, the first time that I got, again, cuffed, put in back of a cop car, I was with these friends, and there was, like, drugs in the car, and so we pulled out, and, like, they looked at it while we were out. They kept trying. My brother told me that if I ever get caught up, just say you need a lawyer, like, you won't speak until you have a lawyer. So that's what I did. And he's like, the cops were getting frustrated, and he's like, it's one of your guys' drugs, whose is it? So I got into the car, and I was by myself, and he's like, so, you want to tell me? And I was like, no, I need a lawyer. And he was like, oh, we're going to play that game? And then he goes out, and then my other friend gets into the car, and she's like, I took the rap. So she ended up taking it. It was her, like, she was the seller, but we were all willing to go down because we weren't going to say anything.
Right.
Yeah, that night, so we ended up, me and my other friend ended up getting out and then bailed her out early morning. But that's the quick synopsis of what my addiction looked like.
Sheesh.
Good job.
Just like, like the relief, I'm sure, just to tell some of the story, because I know it's so much more. I know
I feel like good. I'm glad to be this honest. I was advised not to share this story, but I hope it helps someone, because I feel good about it. Like,
I think it's one of those things, like, there are things that we do in life where not everybody needs to know, and there's sometimes, like, we want to share because maybe somebody can learn from our mistakes and our choices in life, and maybe prevent going down that road. Like, you know, when you were talking about the reality of some of that stuff and, like, what you were feeling, like, the eye rolling, I'm like, what? Like, again, the look on my face, I'm just, like, appalled, like, this, like, horrific, like, you know, and, like, you know, if somebody were to tell you that, you know, again, like, Jessica was a cheerleader, you know, was at FCCLA, was, like, the prom queen, like, National Honor Society, like, all these things, and cut to 2 years later, and you're living this life of, like, what on earth?
Like, street life. Like, when I'm telling you, everyone in my group, on this specific group, carried a gun. We saw multiple drugs. They sold drugs. I was with them. I helped sell the drugs. I was living that lifestyle. My friend was like, whenever there was an issue, there was no talking about it. She's like, oh, you want to go? I'll roll up right now. Show up with her gun. Like, people wouldn't mess with her. And she's a tiny girl, but this girl would rip anyone. But yeah, that's how I was rolling. We all had that. Definitely. My brother laughs because compared to him, he thinks I'm ritzy.
Yeah.
And
because you're in that area.
And I mean, he does understand my addiction. He gets it because he was there. Like, he was the first person I told and, like, was walking through it, kind of. But yeah, he laughs and he's like, I know you were thug, I know. And I was like,
it's not even that.
It's frustrating. I was like, I really was. And he's like, all right, don't omit anything on the phone because everything's recorded.
Well, and it's one of those things, like, it's not, like, I don't want to brag about it, but, like, you've been through those things, and everybody's experience with different, whether it's types of drugs, like you said, and you hit on kind of like food addiction and, like, exercise addiction and, you know, like, nicotine and all these different forms of taking something to the extreme to hide or avoid certain things. I feel like a lot of times, like, you know, what we need to do is figure out, like, what is really the root of stuff before we try to hide, and, like, why, you know, you hang out with friends, and why do we get in with friends that do that, and why do we think it's okay just to get to that point.
Definitely the hurt that I felt, it was a way to numb all that. And sometimes I miss that I can't have a numbing feeling and I have to deal with it, but I know 3 years is I put in the work. I'm, like I said, I'm proud of myself, and like, I can't ever go back to that because my life would be ruined. there's a 2%, if you're addicted to meth, again, I wasn't full force, but there's a 2% chance that you can stop addiction if you stop meth and then go back to it.
Yeah.
So
you know you can't go back to it.
Yeah.
I just, it's.
And when people look at me, they do not expect that at all.
Right.
At all. Like my family, they only know bits. Like now they're gonna know all. But
and still, that's not all. I mean, we can talk for hours.
Yes. I could go. Eventually, we will.
So, and I think too, if you have questions for Jessica, you know, or like advice and stuff like that, reach out to us and see. And I know she's more than willing to share more stories or advice. And I think, you know, we always end every episode with like a question, but I think, I don't know if it's like with the deepness of it, it's like, I'm not going to go like, oh, it's a funny question. No, I think our goal is to be honest and to be vulnerable. And I want to commend you for doing that because I know it's hard. And I know sometimes people that look at us don't see everything because we don't want them to see everything, the good, bads, and uglies, you know, like, so it is difficult. So kudos to you. And thank you for being honest with that. And I'm sorry you've had to go through those things. And you know, and just maybe our lives can just help somebody. And
that's my hope. My final little piece is that if you are going to talk to somebody about drug addiction or alcohol, any type of addiction, the things that need to be said is that along with this, like, you're going to suffer, you're going to go through extreme highs and lows and pains and stuff that you can't even imagine your body going through. And I've tried taking my life so many times because of it, because the consuming depression of feeling helpless and feeling like just imagine, you know, you've gone through bouts of depression. Imagine that never ends and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So that's what people need to know. Like, it's nothing to mess around with. Like, yes, my mental health, it started when I was younger. I can't blame it all on drugs, but it for sure didn't help. Like, sometimes maybe I'm overthinking it, but I'll start just chattering and like catch myself. And I don't know if it's just like conscious, whatever, or what, but it's the truth.
So just know that it's a struggle, but reach to somebody.
Yes, reach out for real.
But on that note, so I think again the biggest thing is like we always just wish you guys well.
Yes.
And
be safe out there.
Yeah. And thanks for joining us. But yeah, be safe for sure.
Yeah.